At my wife Caroline's funeral, no one came but me. I am Julian, 70 years old, and I stood alone under the cold November rain as they lowered her casket into the ground. The chapel had been empty. Just me, a nervous young priest, and 45 years of memories sealed in a cherry wood box. I pulled out my phone, a reflex. No missed calls, no text messages. My thumb, moving on its own, opened Instagram. There was my daughter Melissa, 38, smiling on a yacht in Miami. Sunglasses on, champagne in hand, tagging a vodka brand, posted 3 hours ago. I swiped. There was my son Nathan, 42, holding a silver trophy at a golf tournament in Palm Beach. That winning smile I taught him blazing under the Florida sun. Posted 5 hours ago. They chose parties. They chose sunshine over their mother's goodbye. They thought I was just a sad, broken old man. They thought I was weak, someone to be managed. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The next morning when the doorbell finally rang, I was ready. It was 10 o'clock. I opened the door. There they were, Nathan and Melissa, not in black. Nathan wore a navy blue golf polo, the one with the expensive club logo. He looked like he was about to close a deal. Melissa was in a cream-colored yoga set that probably cost more than my first car, her hair in a tight, perfect bun. She looked like she'd just left a meditation retreat. They carried a cardboard tray with lattes and a paper bag from the French bakery. "Morning, Dad," Nathan said, breezing past me. He brought the smell of expensive cologne into the house. "We brought breakfast," Melissa said, placing a large oat milk latte in front of my usual seat at the kitchen table. "No sugar, just how you like it." That small, calculated kindness meant to soften me up tasted like acid in my throat. I sat down. The house was suffocatingly quiet. This was Caroline's kitchen. It was supposed to smell like her butter cookies and her laughter. Now it just smelled of deceit. Nathan took the seat opposite me, clearing his throat. "Listen, Dad." He started, his voice dripping with a practiced, tired-sounding sympathy. "About yesterday." I just looked at him, waiting. "I am so sorry. I was just stuck." It was the end of quarter shareholders meeting. We were closing the books on a 9-figure deal. I couldn't move it. I'm the CEO. I had to be there. He looked at me with Caroline's eyes, but all the warmth was gone. Only calculation remained. The company. The one I built from nothing but grit and 2x4s. The legacy I had handed him, believing he would honor it. "You know, Mom," he added, a final twist of the knife. "She would have understood. She was always the practical one." Melissa, who had been glancing at her phone, finally looked up. "And my event was for charity, Dad. A huge fundraiser. We raised so much money for kids or something." She waved her hand vaguely. "It was critical for my brand image," she said. "My contract required me to be there." Brand image. The words just hung there. I looked at my daughter. At 38, she was a construct of filters and sponsorships. I remembered a 5-year-old girl who sobbed for 3 days when her cat died, who refused to leave the little grave we dug in the backyard. "Where did that girl go, brand image?" I repeated. My voice was gravel. "Yes, Dad, you don't get it. It's my work. It's complicated." She sipped her own coffee. "Anyway, I'm devastated. I mean, it's just awful. It happened so fast." So fast. Caroline fought cancer for 8 agonizing months. 8 months of chemical burns, sleepless nights, and shattered hopes. 8 months where I held her hand, fed her when she was too weak, and watched the woman I loved disappear. 8 months where Nathan was swamped with meetings, and Melissa had a sponsored trip she just couldn't cancel. "We sent flowers," Nathan cut in as if that settled it. "A huge wreath, very tasteful, the best." I remembered the flowers. They'd been delivered to the funeral home. A glossy ribbon read, "From Nathan and Melissa." They hadn't even bothered to order them personally. "Dad, we need to be practical," Nathan said, his fake sympathy evaporating, replaced by the familiar edge of impatience. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said, shooting a quick, rehearsed glance at Melissa, "we need to get the estate settled, for the good of the family." He stood, walked to the expensive briefcase he'd left by the door, and placed it on the kitchen table. The snap of the brass locks echoed in the quiet room. It was the briefcase I'd given him for his MBA graduation. $2,000 Italian leather. I thought it was an investment in his professionalism. Now I just saw the greed. He pulled out a thick, leather-bound portfolio and slid it across the granite tabletop. "What is this? It's Mom's paperwork." he said, his voice lowering into that fake serious tone. Our lawyer Paul drafted it. It's simple. As we all expected, she left everything to you. He paused, letting that sink in. However, he continued, there's a complex financial structure Mom and I set up a few months ago. My blood ran cold. A few months ago, when she started getting weaker, when I was too busy counting her pills to notice the vultures circling my own home. A trust, Melissa chimed in right on cue. To protect the assets. Nathan nodded. Exactly, a trust for us. You know, the grandkids' college funds are investments. Mom wanted to make sure our future was secure. He flipped the portfolio open to a page marked with a bright yellow "Sign Here" tab. Everything is in place. But since you're Mom's primary heir, the trust just needs your signature to, activate it, release the funds. It's just a formality. He placed a heavy, expensive Mont Blanc pen on top of the paper. I stared at the page. Legal jargon swam in front of my eyes. Miller Family Trust. Beneficiaries, Nathan Miller, Melissa Miller Grant. Immediate disbursement upon execution. I need the liquidity, Dad. Nathan said, his voice tight when I didn't move. Now. Why? Nathan frowned. What do you mean, why? It's our money. Mom wanted this. I have investments lined up. The company needs a capital injection for that new project in Texas. My eyes snapped up to his. The company is the company in trouble. No, he snapped too quickly. The company is fine. It's great. This is just for expansion. You don't need to worry about the details. You're retired. Just sign. Melissa put her hand on mine. Her skin was cold. Her nails were perfectly manicured. Dad, please, she whispered, looking at me with wide, empty eyes. Don't make this difficult. We're grieving. Not a single tear. We just want to honor Mom's wishes. Honor Mom's wishes. I thought about Caroline's real wishes. To see her grandkids play soccer. Melissa said it was too dirty. To have one family dinner with no phones. Nathan always had a work call. The silence in the kitchen was broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. A wedding present from Caroline's parents. It sounded like a bomb. I looked at these two strangers I had raised. Nathan was drumming the expensive pen on the table. Melissa was subtly glancing at her Apple Watch. They didn't come for the funeral. They came for the payout. A cold, sharp anger, something I hadn't felt in my entire 70 years, rose in my chest. I pushed the portfolio back across the table. No. The word was quiet, but it hit them like a gunshot. What did you say? Nathan's fake smile vanished. I said no. My voice was steady. I'm not signing it. Leave it here. I need time. Nathan's impatience finally exploded. He wasn't a 42-year-old CEO. He was a spoiled child. You don't need time, he hissed, leaning across the table. You don't understand. This isn't a request. It's our money Mom promised. You can't do this. I stood up. I felt every one of my 70 years, but I also felt a strength I thought I'd lost. I can. And I am, I said. Now I want to be alone. I turned my back on them and walked toward my study. You're going to regret this, old man, Nathan shouted at my back. I closed the heavy oak door. The solid thud was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard, and I knew exactly who I had to call. I could hear the front door slam hard enough to rattle the frame of my study. The vibration traveled up through the floor into my feet. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't from grief anymore. It was adrenaline, a cold, clear focus I hadn't felt in years. I sat behind my desk. The heavy carved oak desk where I had signed the contracts that built our lives, the desk where Caroline would sit on the edge and rub my shoulders when I worked too late. I opened my leather-bound address book. My fingers, stained with a bit of garden dirt from this morning, found the number I was looking for. Paul. Paul Jacobson. He'd been my lawyer for 35 years. He handled the incorporation of my company. He handled the closing on this very house. He was a good man, an honest man. I dialed his private line. It rang twice. Paul Jacobson. Paul, it's Julian. There was a pause, and then Paul's voice, usually all business, softened with genuine sorrow. Julian, my God, I've been... Julian, I am so sorry about Caroline. It's a tremendous loss. I was planning to call you this afternoon. How are you holding up, my friend? I'm not sure, Paul, I said, my own voice sounding distant. That's why I'm calling. They were just here. Paul asked, a note of confusion. Nathan and Melissa. Another pause. Paul had known my children since they were in diapers. He knew their personalities. Oh, well, I'm glad they're checking on you. It's good you're not alone. They weren't checking on me, Paul, I said. They brought papers. I explained the whole scene. The 10 o'clock arrival, the yoga clothes and the golf polo, the lattes, the casual insulting apologies for missing their mother's funeral, and then the demand. They brought a document, I said, gripping the phone, a Miller family trust. They claimed Caroline set it up with them a few months ago when she was sick. They said it just needed my signature to release funds to them. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. I could hear the faint hum of Paul's office printer far away. Paul, are you there? I'm here, Julian. His voice was completely different. The warmth was gone. It was replaced by the sharp metallic focus of a lawyer who had just smelled a 5-alarm fire. A trust. Set up a few months ago. That's what they said. They implied you knew all about it, that it was just a formality. Julian, Paul said, his words flat and heavy. That is an absolute lie. I have not drafted any new trust documents for Caroline or for you in over 5 years. Not for your children. Not for anyone. My stomach tightened. Then, what about the will? The one we did draft? The will is exactly as we discussed, Paul said, his voice firm, reassuring. It is simple. It is ironclad. Caroline left everything to you, Julian. 100%. The house, the stock portfolio, the retirement accounts, her personal jewelry. You are the sole beneficiary. You are the executor. Her children are only named as contingent beneficiaries in the event that you had passed before her. A wave of relief washed over me so strong my knees felt weak, but it was followed by a chilling confusion. Then what was that document, Paul? What were they trying to get me to sign? It sounds like, Paul said, and I could hear him pacing. They were trying to get you to sign away your inheritance, to transfer your assets, which you just inherited from Caroline, directly into a trust that they control. Julian, did you sign anything? No, I said. No, I told them I needed time. I told them to leave. Good. Paul breathed a sharp, sudden exhale. Good. Thank God. Do not sign anything they give you, Julian. Do not initial anything. Do not even accept another cup of coffee from them. This is deeply disturbing. Nathan said he needed liquidity. I said the word tasting foul. He said it was for the company, for an expansion. The company. Paul's voice sharpened even more. Julian, I helped you set up the corporate structure. It's designed to be self-sufficient. Your retirement package was completely firewalled from the business's operations. That was the whole point. To protect you. To protect Caroline. The implication of his words hung in the air. Protect you from what? From my own son. Paul, I said, my voice quiet. They didn't come to the funeral. Another silence. This one was longer. When Paul spoke again, his voice was cold steel. I see. This isn't grief then. This is an action. This is premeditated. What do I do? You do nothing, Paul commanded. You are a grieving husband. You let me be the lawyer. I'm going to make some inquiries. I'm going to look at the corporate filings. I'll check with the banks. But Julian, there is one thing that's bothering me. Paul's voice was cold steel. I see. This isn't grief then. This is an action. This is premeditated. What do I do, Paul? I asked, my own voice sounding thin. You do nothing, he commanded. You are a grieving husband. You let me be the lawyer. I'm going to make some inquiries. I'll look at the corporate filings. I'll check with the banks. That document they brought, it's trash. They were trying to panic you into signing away your rights. You did the right thing by refusing. But Julian... He stopped. The silence over the line was heavy. Julian, there is one thing that's been bothering me for weeks. A different kind of chill settled over me. This wasn't the cold anger I felt toward Nathan and Melissa. This was a deep, unsettling dread. Paul was my anchor. He was the most level-headed man I knew. If he was bothered, I was in serious trouble. "What is it, Paul? What's wrong?" I heard him exhale a long, weary sound, the sound of a man who didn't want to be having this conversation. "Julian, I wasn't sure how or when to tell you this. Frankly, I was respecting her wishes. But now, given what you've told me, given their actions this morning, I think you need to know." "You have a right to know. Tell me what—" My knuckles were white on the receiver. "What wishes? Whose wishes?" "It's about Caroline," he said quietly. My heart seemed to stop. "What about her? Paul, did she sign something for them before she died? Did Nathan get to her? Did he pressure her?" No, Paul said quickly. "Not in the way you think. The will we discussed, the original will I have on file, it's sound, it's ironclad, it's exactly as I told you. You are the sole beneficiary, you are the executor. But a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks before she passed, Julie and Caroline made a change." "A change? What change?" "She executed a codicil," Paul said. The legal term felt alien cold. "A codicil. What is that, an addendum?" "Yes. A formal, legally binding addition to the existing will. It doesn't invalidate the original will, but it can alter parts of it. It can add new instructions, modify old ones, or change bequests." A wave of nausea hit me. So she did give in to them, she changed it, she gave them the trust, she didn't tell me. The betrayal I felt from my children was suddenly eclipsed by this. Caroline and we didn't keep secrets. In 45 years, we had never kept secrets. "Julian, slow down," Paul said, his voice sharp, pulling me back. "That's the entire problem. I don't know what the codicil says." I gripped the edge of my oak desk. The wood felt unsteady. "What do you mean you don't know, Paul? You've been our lawyer for 35 years. You've handled every part of our lives. How can you not know?" This was the moment. I could feel the tension vibrating through the phone line. Paul was choosing his next words with extreme care. "Because she didn't use me," he said. His voice was flat professional, but I knew him. I could hear the deep personal offense he was trying to hide. "She went to another lawyer, Julian. Someone I have never heard of. A firm I have no connection with. All I have is a name. A Ms. Diaz." Diaz. The name meant nothing to me. It sounded like it came from a different world. Diaz. Why? Why would she do that? Why would she go behind your back? Behind my back? "I don't know, Julian," Paul said. "I truly don't. She called me. She informed me as a professional courtesy that she was executing a codicil and that I was not to be involved. She told me it was her private affair." Her private affair? I stood up my chair, scraping violently against the hardwood floor. We didn't have private affairs, not with money, not with our family. What else did she say? "Paul, tell me." Paul took a deep breath. I could picture him in his office pinching the bridge of his nose. "This is the part you're not going to like, Julian. She was very specific. She made me promise. She knew she was dying, and she made me promise that I would not mention the existence of this codicil to anyone." He paused and then delivered the final devastating blow. "Especially not to you." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Especially not to me." Not tell me." My voice cracked. "Not until it was over." Paul continued, his voice heavy with the weight of the promise he had been forced to keep. She was explicit. "Paul," she said to me, "if something happens to me, you are not to tell Julian about Diaz. Not until after the funeral is completely over. Not until I am in the ground. He must be allowed to grieve first." Those were her exact words, Julian. I sank back into my chair. My mind was reeling, trying to catch up. My children were trying to steal my inheritance, and my wife, my beloved Caroline, had spent her last dying days executing a secret legal maneuver, a secret she protected with a lawyer I'd never met, and a promise she extracted from my oldest friend, a secret she wanted kept, until now. I sank back into my chair. The study, my sanctuary, suddenly felt like a trap. "Diaz, especially not to you, not until after the funeral." Paul's words echoed in the suffocating silence. My mind, numb with grief just this morning, was now racing, trying to piece together a puzzle I never knew existed. I thought back to those last few weeks. The hospice bed in the living room, the smell of antiseptic, and the vanilla-scented candles Caroline loved fighting a losing battle. She was so weak. She could barely hold a pen, let alone orchestrate a complex legal maneuver. Her hands, which I had held for 45 years, were thin, bruised from the IVs and trembled constantly. And I was a wreck. I was so focused on her pain, on her medication schedule, on trying to make her comfortable, that I didn't see anything else. I was, as Nathan had so helpfully pointed out, too emotional. I remembered it clearly now. A Tuesday about a month ago, Nathan had shown up not with flowers but with his briefcase. He had found me in the kitchen struggling to read the fine print on a new prescription bottle. "Dad, you look terrible," he'd said not unkindly. "You can't handle all of this. Let me help." He told me he would take over the financial burden. He said I should just focus on Mom. He said he would handle the bills, the insurance, the estate planning, just to make sure everything is in order. He told me I was too close to it, too emotional to be dealing with numbers. And I, exhausted and broken, had thanked him. I had believed him. I was relieved to pass that burden onto his strong 42-year-old shoulders. The shoulders of the CEO I had trained. My stomach clenched. He must have pressured her. Of course he did. He'd found her alone, weak and vulnerable, while I was downstairs washing her bedsheets or weeping in the garden. He must have brought his own papers, maybe even that disgusting family trust document, and tried to force her to sign. I could picture it. My son, my own son, standing over his dying mother, talking about liquidity and legacy. That had to be it. That had to be the secret. But it didn't fit. If Nathan had forced her to sign something, why would she create a secret codicil? And why would she use a different lawyer if she was trying to stop him? Why not just tell me? Why not tell Paul, our 35-year protector? Why hire a stranger? Why Caroline? Why Diaz? And why in God's name was I the one she was keeping the secret from? I didn't call Paul back. I just sat there, the name Diaz burning in my mind. My children were thieves. My wife had a secret, and I was the only one who didn't know the game. I found the firm Diaz Legal Services through a quick online search. It wasn't in the high-rise district where Paul had his corner office. It was in a small brick building 3 towns over, wedged between a bakery and a dry cleaner. I drove my Mercedes, the one Nathan always said was too old, and parked on the street. The office was on the 2nd floor up a narrow flight of stairs. The sign on the door was simple black plastic lettering, A. Diaz, Attorney at Law. The waiting room was just 2 chairs and a coffee table with magazines from 6 months ago. A young man looked up from a large desk. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Ms. Diaz," I said. "My name is Julian Miller. I don't have an appointment." "One moment." He disappeared behind a door. I heard a muffled voice, and then the young man reappeared. "Ms. Diaz will see you now." The office I stepped into was tiny. It was cluttered with case files and law books. There was no expensive art, no sweeping view of the city, just a window that looked out onto a brick wall. Behind a large, messy desk sat a woman in her late 50s. She had sharp eyes, graying hair pulled back in a severe bun, and she was wearing a simple blouse. She did not stand up. She just watched me, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Diaz, Mr. Miller," she said. Her voice was firm, no nonsense. "I was wondering when you would get here." I stopped in the middle of the room. You were expecting me." "I was," she said. She gestured to the only other chair in the room, one piled with files. "Please sit." I moved the files myself and sat down. "Your wife," Ms. Diaz said, leaning forward, "was an exceptionally intelligent woman." "My wife, Caroline?" "Yes," she said, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching her lips. "She was very smart and very thorough." Ms. Diaz reached into a desk drawer and pulled out a simple, letter-sized manila envelope. It was sealed. My name, Julian, was written on the front in Caroline's familiar, elegant handwriting. "She instructed me to give this to you," Ms. Diaz said, "but only after her funeral was concluded, and only if you came to me alone." She slid the envelope across the desk. It was heavy, too heavy for just a letter. "What is this?" I asked, my hand trembling slightly as I touched the paper. "It is a letter," Ms. Diaz said, her dark eyes fixed on mine, "and a USB drive." She stood up, walking to the small window and looking out at the brick wall. "Caroline was very clear about her instructions, Mr. Miller. She was under duress. But she was not weak. Ms. Diaz turned back to me. She called it her real life insurance policy. I drove home in a daze. The manila envelope was heavy on the passenger seat next to me. It felt like a bomb. The house was cold when I let myself in. The silence I had felt this morning was just emptiness. This silence was heavy, thick with secrets. I didn't turn on the lights. I walked straight to my study and sat in my chair. For a long time, I just stared at the envelope, at her handwriting. Julian, just my name. My fingers fumbled with the metal clasp. I pulled it open. Inside there was a small silver USB drive and a letter and several pages folded. It was her favorite stationery, the thick, cream-colored paper with the blue hydrangea at the top. I unfolded the pages. Her handwriting, once so strong and flowing, was thin, shaky, but it was unmistakably her. I took a deep breath, and I began to read. My dearest Julian, my love, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have survived the funeral. And I am so, so sorry. I am sorry for all of it, but most of all, I am sorry for this secret. Please, my love, you must forgive me. What I have done, I did to protect you, not to betray you. I know you are sitting in your study right now feeling like I've lied to you. You are feeling what you felt when I told you I'd bought that ridiculous red sports car in '95 without asking you, but this is not that. This is different. I felt a small, painful laugh escape me. That red car. She'd driven it for a month before admitting she hated it. I have kept this from you, Julian, because I know your heart. Your big, beautiful, trusting heart. The heart that always wanted to see the best in our children. Even when I stopped seeing it years ago. I have been covering for them for so long, Julian, silently, hoping they would change, hoping that one day they would wake up and be the children we raised, not the monsters they have become. I paid off Melissa's credit cards twice. I invested in Nathan's side projects that I knew were just funding his and his wife's lifestyle. I did it to keep the peace. I did it to spare you the pain of knowing the truth. But I was wrong. I wasn't protecting you. I was enabling them. My hands were gripping the pages so tightly the edges were crumbling. I know you are alone, Julian. I know they didn't come. Don't look surprised. I knew they wouldn't. I've known for a long time. They are not like us. They measure love in dollars. They see us. They see you. As a bank account to be managed. An inheritance to be expedited. When I got the final diagnosis, the real one, the one we kept between us, I knew I had to act. I knew that the moment I was gone, they would turn on you. They would descend on you like vultures, demanding what they believe is theirs. Demanding the house, demanding the company, demanding the money we earned, not them. I couldn't let that happen, Julian. I couldn't leave you defenseless. And I knew you were too emotional, too heartbroken to fight them. You would have given in just for a moment of peace. You would have given them everything just to make the yelling stop. Just like you did when Nathan broke that antique vase and blamed Melissa. You just wanted it to be over. You always just wanted peace. So I did what I had to do, in secret. I couldn't use Paul. Paul is your man. He is your friend. He would have told you to protect you, and that would have started the fight too soon. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk you. I needed someone they would never see coming. Someone on the outside, someone tough. I found Ms. Diaz. She is not like us, Julian. She is not a peacemaker. She is a fighter, and I needed a fighter. Forgive me, my love, for going to a stranger, but she was the only one I could trust with this. The only one not blinded by 40 years of family history. The only one who saw the situation for what it was, financial abuse. I knew they would come to you right after. I knew they would come with papers. I knew they would pressure you, bully you, try to confuse you in your grief. I am so sorry, Julian, that I couldn't be there to protect you from that, but I did the next best thing. I've left you a weapon. I am writing this letter, but the real truth, the proof, is on the USB drive. I need you to be strong now, Julian. Stronger than you've ever been. What you are about to see and hear will break your heart. It will shatter every last good memory you have of our children. But you must watch it. You must understand the truth. You must understand what Nathan did. My dearest Julian, her letter continued, what you are about to see and hear will break your heart. It will shatter every last good memory you have of our children. but you must watch it. You must understand the truth. You must understand what Nathan did. It happened last week. That Tuesday I was so weak. The hospice nurse had just left. You had gone to the pharmacy to refill my prescription. You were gone for less than an hour, but it was long enough. Nathan came. He didn't knock. He just let himself in like he always does. But he didn't come to my bedside to hold my hand. He didn't ask me if I needed water. He came into the living room where my bed was set up, and he was carrying his leather briefcase, the one you gave him. He looked annoyed, irritated, like I was an inconvenience. "Mom," he said, not even looking me in the eye, just opening his briefcase on the dining table, "we have a problem, a big one." I asked him what was wrong. I thought it was the grandkids. He just scoffed. "No, not them. It's the company. There are some cash flow issues." I knew, Julian. I've known for months. You were too busy taking care of me to look at the books, but I've been getting the bank alerts, the corporate account alerts. I've seen the wire transfers. I've seen the charges, thousands, then tens of thousands. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, payments to jewelry stores in New York, payments to a leasing company for a car I knew he was driving, a new Ferrari, payments for a condo in Miami, the one Melissa calls her brand office. He's been bleeding it dry, Julian. Bleeding our company dry, the company we started in our garage, the company we poured 45 years of our lives into. He's been treating it like his personal piggy bank to fund his life, to fund Melissa's entire pathetic fake existence. He hasn't just been spending the profits, my love. He's been spending the principal. He's been spending the payroll taxes. He's been spending the money we owed to our suppliers. He hasn't just been stealing from us, Julian. He's been stealing from everyone. He told me the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, our company. He said it was a perfect storm of market conditions and bad luck. He lied to my face as I lay there dying. I asked him how much. How much was he talking about? He finally looked at me, Julian, and there was no sadness, no remorse, only a cold, hard impatience. He said, "It doesn't matter how much. It's a lot. Millions. Millions. Our millions." And then he said the words that made my blood run cold. "But it's fixable. I have a solution. I just need your help." He pulled out a stack of documents from his briefcase, a thick stack, and he spread them on my hospital tray right over the blanket. "I need you to sign these," he said. "It's just a formality. It's a new line of credit, a loan. It will save the company." I looked at the papers, Julian. My eyes were blurry from the medication, but I could see the letterhead. It wasn't the company's bank. It was a private lender, a hard money lender, the kind of loan sharks you and I swore we would never go near. And I read the terms. I read what he was asking me to sign. He wasn't just leveraging the company, Julian. He was asking me to sign over our house, this house, our home, the one we've lived in since 1978. He was asking me to sign over our entire personal retirement portfolio, the stocks you so carefully managed, the bonds we were going to live on. Everything, Julian. Everything we had left. He wanted me to sign it all away, to pledge it as collateral for a high-interest loan to cover the millions he had stolen. I told him no. I said, "Nathan, no. Nathan, I will not. This is your father's. This is ours." I thought he would yell. I thought he would beg. I thought he would cry. He did none of those things. He got very, very quiet. He leaned in close, so close I could smell the expensive cologne on his shirt, and his voice was a whisper. It was the coldest sound I have ever heard. "You don't understand, Mom," he said. "You will sign this. You don't have a choice." He told me everything. He hadn't just been stealing. He had been committing fraud. He had forged our names. He had taken out other loans, smaller ones, using our assets as collateral without our knowledge. He said the company was going to default on those loans by the end of the week. And when it did, the banks would find the forgeries. The whole thing would unravel. The company wouldn't just go bankrupt, Julian. It would be a criminal investigation. And this is the part that kills me, my love. This is the part that made me do what I did. He threatened you. He said, "When they investigate, who do you think they're going to look at, me or the 70-year-old founder who just retired, the one whose name is on everything, the one who is too emotional to handle his own finances?" He was going to frame you, Julian. He was going to let you take the fall. He was going to tell the world that you were the one who had been stealing, that you were the one who committed the fraud, that he, Nathan, had been trying to clean up your mess. He said, "So you have two choices, Mom. You sign these papers, we get the money, we pay off the immediate debt, and we save the company. No one ever has to know. Or you refuse. And you can spend your last few days on this earth watching your husband get arrested. You can die knowing that you've sent him to prison. You can die knowing that you've let him be humiliated, bankrupted, and destroyed." He said Dad will be ruined. He'll be 70 years old with nothing. He'll lose the house, he'll lose his pension, he'll lose his name, he'll be out on the street. Is that what you want, Mom, to die knowing you did that to him? I just stared at him, at my son, my little boy, and I saw a monster, a complete stranger. He had it all planned. He knew I was weak. He knew I was dying. And he knew I loved you more than anything in this world. He was using my love for you as a weapon against me. He smiled, Julian, a little tight smile. "Sign the papers, Mom. It's the only way to save him." My hand was shaking so badly I could barely pick up the small silver drive. I looked at the USB port on the side of my desktop computer. It seemed a mile away. I plugged it in. The computer made a small, polite chime. A window popped up. One file. It was just one file, an audio file, titled Tuesday. I clicked it. The speakers on my desk, usually silent, hissed to life. First, there was a sound I knew too well. The rhythmic electronic beep, beep, beep of the hospice heart monitor. Then the soft, constant hiss of the oxygen concentrator. It was her room. He had recorded it. Then her voice. It was so small, papery, a dry whisper. "Nathan, please, you don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking," Nathan's voice boomed. It was cold, impatient, the voice of a CEO in a hostile negotiation, not a son at his mother's bedside. "I'm asking you to fix this, the mess you and Dad created by letting this company get old. We built this. You built a dinosaur," he snapped, "and I'm trying to save it. Now sign the papers. I already explained the loan. It's the only way. It's Julian's. It's our home." A sigh. A heavy, annoyed sigh from Nathan. I could picture him pinching the bridge of his nose, looking at his watch. "Mom, just sign it. Dad is too old to understand the complexities of this. He's too emotional. He'll just get in the way. Don't be stubborn. This is for his good, too." There was a long silence. Just the beep, beep, beep of the monitor. Then Caroline, her voice almost too quiet to hear. And if I don't..." Nathan's voice dropped. It lost its anger. It became something else, something terrifying, a cold, flat, reasonable tone. "Then you'll die knowing you destroyed this family. You'll die knowing you ruined him. You'll die knowing your stubbornness made your husband homeless and bankrupt at 70 years old. You will be the reason he ends up in a state-run home. You will be the one who destroys his name. Is that truly how you want to be remembered?" The audio file ended. It just stopped. I was rigid in my chair. I wasn't breathing. He hadn't just threatened her. He hadn't just bullied her. He had, in her final, weakest moments, taken her love for me and forged it into a weapon to destroy us both. I was going to be sick. I looked down at the letter in my lap, my eyes blurred with a rage I had never known I possessed. I found my place on the last page. He thought I was weak. Julian. Her handwriting trembled, but the words were pure steel. He thought I was beaten. He thought he had me trapped. He saw a dying old woman. He forgot who I was. He forgot I was the woman who did the books for our company by hand for the first 20 years. He forgot I was the one who spotted the fraud in the Wilson contract in '98. He forgot I was smart. I didn't sign Julian. I would rather have died. I would rather have let him do it than sign your life away. But I did something better. I looked at him, at our son, and I did the hardest thing I have ever done. I pretended to agree. I let a tear roll down my cheek. I let my hand tremble, and I whispered, "You're right, Nathan. You're right. I can't let that happen to Julian. I'll do it. To protect your father, I'll sign." I told him, just Just leave the papers. I'm so tired, so tired. I'll sign them tonight when I have more strength. I promise. Just go, please. Let me rest." And he believed me, Julian. His arrogance was so complete, his contempt for me, for you, was so total that he believed me. He patted my hand. He actually patted my hand and told me I was doing the right thing for the family. He told me he'd be back in the morning to collect the paperwork. He left. He left his briefcase, he left the loan documents, and he left thinking he had won. I waited, my love. I waited until I heard his car pull out of the driveway. I counted to 100, and then, using the last bit of strength I had in my body, I made a call. Not to Paul, not to you. I called Ms. Diaz. I had found her a week before Julian, in secret. I've been planning, just in case. She's not just a lawyer, she's a specialist in elder abuse, and she's a notary. She came to the house, not through the front door. She came through the garden gate just as we planned, while you were at the pharmacy picking up pills thinking I was sleeping. And I signed new papers, my love. My papers. The ones she drafted. I took everything, Julian. Every asset that was in my name. This house, which has been solely in my name ever since we refinanced it 15 years ago, a fact our son clearly forgot to check. The entire retirement portfolio, and most importantly, the 51% controlling interest in the company, our company, my original 51% founder's share which I never relinquished, the share you insisted I keep all those years ago. I transferred all of it, Julian, every last cent, into a new irrevocable trust, a fortress, a legal vault that Nathan cannot touch, that Melissa cannot touch, one that no one can ever break. The beneficiaries, not our children. The primary beneficiary is a charity, Julian, a wonderful one, that helps elderly victims of financial abuse. And the sole trustee, the only person with the power to manage the funds, the only person with the power to vote those company shares, the only person with total control over every last dollar. It's you, Julian. It's you. I dropped the letter. My hands were shaking, but not from rage anymore. It was awe. She hadn't just died. She had laid a trap. She hadn't left me defenseless. She had left me armed. She had left me a sword, and she had left me a shield. Caroline, my quiet, gentle Caroline, had been a warrior, and she had just handed me the keys to the entire kingdom. It was 2 hours later when the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite chime. It was a long, angry press followed by 3 sharp pounds on the heavy oak door. I didn't move from my study. I just sat there, Caroline's letter folded neatly on my desk. The USB drive was in my shirt pocket, a small, hard rectangle against my chest. I was no longer a grieving husband. I was an executor, more pounding. "Dad, open this door. We know you're in there." I heard the front door open anyway. They had their own key. I heard their footsteps. Not the cautious, fake, sympathetic steps from this morning. These were heavy, angry strides. My study door flew open, crashing against the wall. Nathan and Melissa stood there. The masks were gone. Nathan's face was a blotchy red. His expensive polo shirt was wrinkled, his hair a mess as if he'd been pulling at it. Melissa was right behind him, her phone clutched in her hand like a weapon, her perfect makeup ruined by an angry sneer. They hadn't brought any more pastries. "What the hell is this?" Nathan barked. He didn't even come in, just yelled from the doorway. I simply looked at him. I didn't get up. "Did you sign the papers?" he demanded. I said nothing. "I am not playing games, Dad," he shouted, taking a step into the room. "I told you I need those funds. The creditors are calling. You're messing up my business. You're messing up my life." Melissa pushed past him. Her voice was shrill. "Dad, just sign it. Stop being so stubborn. What is wrong with you?" I looked at my daughter. My pretty pampered daughter. The brand image that Caroline had been funding that Nathan had been stealing for. "We don't have time for you to have some old person meltdown," she said, her voice rising. "This is our future, our inheritance. Mom wanted us to have it." "She did she?" I asked. My voice was quiet, calm. It seemed to make them even angrier. "Yes," Melissa shrieked. "She did. She worked her entire life to make sure we were taken care of. We deserve this. I have contracts to fulfill. Nathan has a company to run. You're just sitting here retired. You don't need any of it." I saw them. I saw them exactly as Caroline had described. The vultures, descending. We deserve this. The words echoed in my head, mixing with the sound of Nathan's voice on the recording. You'll die knowing you destroyed this family. These were the children I had raised. These were the people I had loved. Your old dad, Melissa said, her voice dripping with contempt. You're confused by grief. You don't understand these things. Just sign the paper and you can go back to whatever it is you do. Go gardening. Mourn. We'll handle everything. It's ours. Ours. Bojia Roy, she had said. You're old. The same words from the recording. Dad is too old to understand. They had rehearsed this. They saw me as a faulty piece of machinery, a senile old man standing between them and their money. I looked at Nathan. The creditors are calling, I asked. Or are the people you stole from calling? Nathan's face went from red to white. What? What did you just say? I repeated, standing up slowly from my chair. Are the creditors calling, or are they the ones you've been committing fraud against? He's lost his mind, Nathan said to Melissa, but his eyes were filled with a new sudden panic. I'm not signing the papers, Nathan, I said. You will, he roared. I'm not signing your fraudulent trust document. I'm not signing away my house, and I'm not signing away my company. Melissa let out a frustrated scream. What are you talking about? It's not your company anymore. It's Nathan's. And it's not your house, it's our house. We grew up here. You can't just keep it all. Bon con sung dang voidiuda, she'd screamed in my head in Vietnamese, but the English was just as ugly. We deserve it. No, I said. The word was cold. It was final. Nathan stared at me. The bully in the schoolyard had just been punched in the mouth. He was stunned. You can't, he stammered. I'll sue you. I'll have you declared incompetent. You're a grieving, senile old man. No court will listen to you. I think they will, I said. I reached into my shirt pocket. Especially when they hear from Mom. I looked at Nathan, at his contorted red face full of self-righteous fury. I looked at Melissa, her features twisted in a mask of greedy impatience. You can't... Nathan stammered, his mind racing to find a new threat. I'll sue you. I'll have you declared incompetent. You're a grieving, senile old man. No court will listen to you. I think they will, I said. My voice was calm. It was the calmest I had felt in a year. The fog of grief had finally burned away, leaving only a cold, hard clarity. I reached into my shirt pocket. Their eyes followed my hand. Melissa probably thought I was reaching for a pill bottle. Nathan just looked confused. My fingers closed around the small silver rectangle. I pulled it out. The USB drive. Especially, I said, holding it up between my thumb and forefinger, when they hear from Mom. Melissa squinted. What is that, a flash drive? What are you talking about? You have lost your mind. Nathan's eyes narrowed. A different kind of emotion flickered across his face. Not anger, not panic, just calculation. He was trying to figure out the angle. Dad, I am done with this, he said, taking a step forward. Give me the trust papers. I'm going to my lawyer. You've made your choice. No, Nathan, I said. I walked past him to the large desktop computer on my desk. They both turned to watch me. I think you need to hear this first. I plugged the USB drive into the port. The computer chimed. What is this? Nathan demanded. Some old photos. A video of you and Mom. Are you trying to make us feel guilty? It's not going to work. Just listen, I said. I clicked the file. Tuesday. I turned the volume up. Loud. The speakers hissed. And then the sound filled the study. Beep, beep, beep. Melissa flinched. What is that? Turn it off. That, I said, is your mother's heart monitor. Her hand flew to her mouth. Nathan froze. He knew. In that instant he knew. His face went completely white. And then her voice, papery, weak. Nathan, please. You don't know what you're asking. Nathan's voice, cold, impatient, booming in the quiet room. I know exactly what I'm asking. I'm asking you to fix this, the mess you and Dad created. Melissa let out a small, strangled sound. Is that Is that Mom?" I just watched them. We all listened as Nathan's voice, our son's voice, laid out his plan. We heard him brush off Caroline's weak protests. "Just sign it. Dad is too old to understand the complexities of this. He's too emotional. He'll just get in the way. Don't be stubborn." Melissa looked at Nathan. "Nathan, what is this? What did you do?" He didn't answer her. He was staring at this computer, at the speakers, as if he could will them to stop with his mind. He looked like a man watching his own execution. And then the moment came. The long, terrible silence on the recording, followed by Caroline's tiny, trembling question. "And if I don't?" I watched Nathan's face. He closed his eyes. He knew what was coming. Melissa was looking back and forth from me to Nathan, her mind not yet able to comprehend the evil of it. And then Nathan's voice filled the room, the cold, flat, reasonable whisper of a monster. "Then you'll die knowing you destroyed this family. You'll die knowing you ruined him. You'll die knowing your stubbornness made your husband homeless and bankrupt at 70 years old. You will be the reason he ends up in a state-run home. You will be the one who destroys his name. Is that truly how you want to be remembered?" The recording stopped. The silence that filled the study was absolute. It was heavier than the rain at the funeral, heavier than the lid on Caroline's casket. Melissa was sobbing, not tears of grief. They were horrified, hysterical gasps. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Nathan, what did you do? What did you say to her?" Nathan hadn't moved. His eyes were still closed. He was breathing, but in short, shallow gasps. The CEO was gone. The bully was gone. All that was left was a cornered, terrified criminal. "You," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. They both looked at me. "You didn't just miss her funeral," I said, walking toward them. "You didn't just ignore her for the last 8 months of her life." I stood in front of my son. He finally opened his eyes. They were dead. "You stood over your dying mother, and you tried to blackmail her. You threatened to destroy me, your father, just to cover up the fact that you are a common thief." "No," Melissa whimpered. "Dad, no. He wouldn't. Nathan, tell him it's not true. It's a fake. You faked it," she shrieked at me. "He can't." "Melissa," I said, "because he was there, but he made one mistake. He forgot who his mother was. He thought she was a weak, dying old woman. He forgot she was a warrior." I looked back at Nathan. "And you failed. You don't know." Nathan finally whispered, his voice hoarse. "You don't know what you're doing. You'll destroy the company. You'll destroy everything." "No, Nathan," I said, shaking my head. "You're wrong again. You already destroyed the company." I reached for my phone. "You said you were going to have me declared incompetent," I said. "A grieving, senile old man." "Well, that old man is about to make a phone call." Melissa's eyes widened. Who are you calling? The police, Dad?" "No, you can't. He's your son. It's a family matter." "No," I said. This stopped being a family matter when he threatened his mother's life. This is a business matter now. Nathan looked up, a new desperate hope in his eyes. A deal, Dad. Yes, we can make a deal. We can fix this. I can pay it back. I can..." "Stop talking," I said. He stopped. "You seem to be under the impression," I said, "that you still have a company, that you still have a job, that you still have a single shred of power left." I looked at both of them, at their greedy, terrified faces. "You're about to find out just how wrong you are." The silence in the study was absolute. The only sound was Melissa's ragged, hysterical breathing. She was staring at Nathan, her face a mask of pale, dawning horror. All the color had drained from her face. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Oh my God. Nathan, what did you do? What did you say to her?" Nathan was a statue. He was staring at the computer, at the silent speakers, as if he could will them to rewind time. He looked like a man who had just watched his entire life burn to the ground. He had been so focused on trapping his dying mother, he never once considered that she might be trapping him. I looked at them. My 2 children. My son, a criminal. My daughter, his greedy, clueless accomplice. They looked up at me, their eyes wide. They weren't just looking at their father. They were looking at a stranger, a man they had never seen before, a man who held all the cards. "You," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. It was cold. I felt no pity. I felt no sadness. I felt nothing but the steely resolve Caroline had left me. They both flinched. "You didn't just miss her funeral," I said, taking a step toward them. "You didn't just ignore her for the last 8 months of her life while she wasted away." I stood directly in front of my son. He finally opened his eyes. They were dead, empty. "You stood over your dying mother, and you tried to blackmail her. You threatened to destroy me, your father, just to cover up the fact that you are a common thief." "No," Melissa whimpered, shaking her head violently. "No, Dad, he wouldn't. Nathan, tell him it's not true. It's a fake. You faked it." She shrieked at me, the accusation absurd. "You did this to trick us, to keep the money." "He can't, Melissa," I said, not taking my eyes off Nathan. "Because he was there. He knows every word is true." I leaned in just a little. "But you both made one mistake, a fatal one. You forgot who your mother was. You thought she was a weak, dying old woman. You forgot she was a warrior." I looked back at Nathan. "And you failed." The word hit him. He staggered back a step as if I'd physically struck him. "You don't know," Nathan finally whispered, his voice hoarse. "You don't know what you're doing. You'll destroy the company. You'll destroy everything, all of it." "No, Nathan," I said, shaking my head slowly. "You're wrong again. You already destroyed the company. You just didn't know it." Melissa's mind was catching up her terror, turning back to rage as she tried to find a different angle. "The letter. You said, Mom's letter. What did it say? What did she do?" "She was smart, Melissa," I said. "While your brother was threatening her, trying to force her to sign away our home to cover his crimes, your mother was one step ahead." I let them hang on the words. "She pretended to agree," I said. "She told him she would sign his papers, and as soon as he left thinking he had won, she made a call." Nathan looked up, his eyes widening in comprehension. "Diaz," he whispered. "Yes, Nathan, Ms. Diaz. While you were celebrating your victory, your mother was busy. She transferred everything, this house, the entire retirement portfolio, and most importantly, her 51% controlling interest in the company." Melissa's face crumpled. She gave it away to charity. She disinherited us." "She put it all into a new irrevocable trust," I said. "A legal fortress that you cannot touch, that your creditors cannot touch, that no one can ever break." A choked, strangled laugh escaped Nathan's throat. He was looking at the floor, shaking his head. "A trust," he said, his voice gaining a strange, hysterical confidence. "A trust, of course." He looked up at me, and the deadness in his eyes was replaced by a familiar, arrogant spark. The cornered rat was fighting back. "You old fool," he sneered, his voice dripping with condescending pity. "You absolute old fool. Don't you see, she set you up?" Melissa looked at him confused. What are you talking about, Nathan?" "Don't you get it?" he said, a wild smile spreading across his face. "The letter. What did the letter say? Who did she make the trustee, the person who controls it all?" He didn't wait for my answer. He knew. "It's you, isn't it?" He laughed. "She made you the trustee, the sole manager." I just stared at him. "You idiot," he shouted, jabbing a finger at me. "You think you've won. You haven't. You're the trustee. You have a fiduciary duty. You think you can just give it all to charity. No, we are the natural heirs. We are the beneficiaries of this family. You have to share it with us. It's family property." He was pacing now, the CEO back in charge, his mind spinning a new web of lies. "You can't cut us out. I'll sue you. I'll sue the trust. I'll have you removed as trustee so fast. I'll prove you're incompetent. That recording. Please, that's my word against a dying woman's. I was trying to save the company. You're the one acting erratically. You're the grieving, senile old man who's trying to steal his children's inheritance." He was almost breathless, his eyes gleaming with his own brilliance. "You just played your only card, Dad," he said, straightening his wrinkled polo shirt. "And it was the wrong one. You're holding all of our assets, and as your lawyer will tell you, you are legally bound to manage them for our benefit." He looked at me triumphant. "It's over. You lost. Now, we're going to call our lawyers, and we are going to have a very, very serious meeting about your management of our trust." He turned to Melissa. "Come on, we're leaving." He actually thought he had won. His arrogance was so profound, so absolute, he couldn't see the final trap. "Wait, Nathan," Melissa said, her eyes still on me. He said the beneficiary was Charity." "He's lying," Nathan snapped. "He's trying to scare us. She would never. It's family money." I let the silence stretch. I let him enjoy his victory for a few long seconds. "You're right about one thing, Nathan," I said. He stopped his hand on the doorknob, a smug look on his face. "I'm right about all of it." "No," I said. "You're right, Mom. I am the trustee. Caroline gave me sole absolute control over everything." "Exactly," he sneered. "Now you're getting it." "But you seem to have forgotten, son," I said, walking slowly toward him. "You forgot who you're talking to. I didn't just build that company. I built it in the most competitive cutthroat industry in this country. I built it by being smarter, tougher, and more ruthless than every other shark in the water." I stopped just a foot from his face. His smug smile wavered. "I've been retired for 5 years, Nathan. But you're about to find out just how wrong you are." Nathan's arrogant, wild laughter echoed in my study long after he and Melissa had stormed out. He actually thought he had won. His mind, so twisted by greed and self-delusion, had immediately found a new narrative, a new path to victory. He wasn't a cornered criminal. In his mind, he was a CEO under attack, a son being cheated by his senile father. He had walked out of my study, pulling his phone from his pocket. He didn't even leave the house. He stood right there in my hallway, Melissa whimpering beside him, and he started making calls. I watched him from the doorway. "Yes, it's Nathan," he said, his voice instantly shifting back to that smooth, authoritative CEO tone. "We have an emergency, a crisis. My father, since my mother's death, he's had a complete breakdown. He's making threats. He's trying to liquidate the company." A pause. "No, I'm not exaggerating. He's delusional. He's under the control of some new predatory lawyer. He's claiming to be the trustee of Mom's shares, and he's threatening to dissolve everything. It's a tragedy, but we have to act." He was already spinning the story. He would use the recording against me. He would paint me as the villain, the grieving, senile old man lashing out, destroying his children's legacy out of spite. He would claim I was the one trying to steal the family assets, and he had a tool to do it. He still owned 49% of Miller Construction. My stomach turned. I had given him that. 5 years ago, when I retired, I'd handed my only son nearly half of the empire I had built with my bare hands. I made him CEO. I gave him the keys to the kingdom, believing he was ready. Caroline and we had kept the 51% controlling interest in her name. It was our safety net, our just in case. A quiet way to make sure the company we loved would never be driven off a cliff. We never imagined our own son would be the one at the wheel, aiming for the edge. I knew his plan. I could see the chess moves as he was making them. He couldn't attack the trust directly. Not yet. It was an ironclad legal fortress, just as Caroline had intended. So he would attack the company, the one asset inside the trust that he still had access to. He would call an emergency meeting of the board. He would use his 49% stake to sow panic. He would go to the other board members, the executives with stock options, the minor partners, and he would tell them I was the threat. He would argue that I, Julian, the new trustee, was mentally incompetent, that I was acting out of grief and rage, that my threat to destroy everything, which was his threat, not mine, was a violation of my fiduciary duty to the company. He would file an injunction. He would try to get a judge to freeze my voting rights on that 51% share. He would argue that this senile old founder couldn't be allowed to burn his own legacy to the ground. He thought he was a genius. He thought he was one step ahead. He finished his call, a smug, cold smile on his face. He turned to me. "Emergency board meeting," he announced. "My office, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Be there, Dad. You're still technically on the board after all." He leaned in his voice a low hiss. "It'll be the last one you ever attend. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to sign a check for a cup of coffee, let alone manage a multi-million-dollar trust. I'm taking control. It's what Mom really would have wanted." He and Melissa left, slamming the front door. I stood there in the silence. He was walking right into it. He thought he had called the meeting. He thought he was setting the trap. He had no idea. Caroline's plan was deeper than just a trust. She hadn't just left me a sword. She had prepared the entire battlefield. And he was walking right into the kill zone. The boardroom at Miller Construction was on the top floor. My floor. The table was a single massive slab of polished mahogany I'd bought 20 years ago. My old chair, the high-backed leather one, sat at the head. Nathan was already in it. He looked every bit the CEO. His suit was perfect. His hair was perfect. He looked confident, serious, and deeply concerned. The room was full. The other board members, Robert Vance, our CFO, Sarah Jenkins, our head of operations, and 2 minor investors all sat there looking grim. They were people I had known for decades, people who had been to my home, people Caroline had cooked dinner for. They all looked at me as I entered, not with sympathy, with pity and fear. Nathan had set the stage perfectly. "Dad," Nathan said, his voice smooth, full of strained compassion. "Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult." I didn't say a word. I just took a seat at the far end of the table, the seat reserved for observers. The tension in the room was so thick I could barely breathe. Robert Vance, our CFO, a man I'd golfed with for 30 years, wouldn't even meet my eye. Sarah Jenkins just stared at her legal pad. They believed him. "All right," Nathan said, tapping a pen on the table. "Let's call this emergency meeting to order. As you all know, we are here under extremely difficult circumstances." He paused, steepled his fingers, and looked around the table, his face a mask of solemn duty. "We are all grieving the loss of my mother, Caroline. She was the heart of this company and the heart of our family. And no one," he said, turning his gaze on me, "has been hit harder than my father." He let the words hang. I love my father. But in the days since Mom's passing, he has had a severe and understandable break, a mental health crisis that is now threatening the very existence of this company. I could hear Sarah Jenkins draw in a sharp breath. "Yesterday," Nathan continued, "my father Julian informed me of his new position. As you all know, Mom's 51% controlling interest was placed in a trust. My father is the trustee." He shook his head as if in sorrow. "In his current volatile state, he has threatened to liquidate everything, to burn the company to the ground, to destroy his own legacy and all of our livelihoods out of what I can only describe as a fit of irrational grief and anger." Robert Vance finally looked at me. "Julian, is this true? You want to liquidate?" I remained silent. I just watched Nathan. Let him build his own gallows. He's not himself. "Robert," Nathan said, cutting in before I could speak. "He's lashing out. When I tried to reason with him to protect the company, to protect him, he became abusive. He even tried to use a doctored audio recording to blackmail me, to extort me. That was his move. He was going to use the recording against me. He would claim I faked it. A desperate, senile old man. "He is under the influence of a new predatory lawyer," Nathan went on, his voice filled with righteous anger. "This Ms. Diaz, she has him convinced that we are the enemy. She is pushing him to dissolve our assets, to sell off our properties, probably so she can collect a massive fee. He had an answer for everything. He was good. I had trained him after all. He is a danger to himself and a danger to Miller Construction," Nathan said, his voice dropping to a somber, serious tone. "He is in clear violation of his fiduciary duty. His duty is to protect the shareholders, to protect us, not to act on personal, emotional whims." He looked around the table. He had them. They were terrified. They were envisioning their jobs, their stock options, their futures all disappearing because of one crazy old man. "Therefore," Nathan said, "I have to do the hardest thing I've ever had to do, as a CEO and as a son." He let the silence sit. "I propose an emergency motion to file an injunction with the court to temporarily suspend Julian Miller's voting rights on the 51% share held by the trust, pending a full and immediate mental competency hearing." The room was frozen. This was a coup. Nathan had laid the perfect trap. He had painted me as a lunatic. If I stood up, if I yelled, if I showed the recording, if I even spoke of his blackmail, I would just be proving his point. I would be the erratic, senile old man obsessed with a fake recording just as he'd predicted. He had me. He had me completely boxed in. All eyes in the room turned to me. They were waiting for the explosion. I just sat there, calm. I didn't look at Nathan. I just waited. Nathan frowned. This wasn't part of his plan. I was supposed to be screaming. "Dad," he said, a note of uncertainty in his voice. Do you have anything to say?" I leaned forward just a fraction. "I do, Nathan," I said, my voice quiet, clear. "But I believe I'll wait for my counsel to arrive." Nathan's smug look faltered. "Your counsel, Dad? This is a private board meeting. You can't just—" Right on cue, the heavy doors to the boardroom swung open. It wasn't Paul, it wasn't one of the corporate lawyers, it was Ms. Diaz, and she was not alone. The heavy boardroom doors swung open. It wasn't just Ms. Diaz. She walked in flanked by two tall men in severe dark suits. They carried heavy locked briefcases. They looked like undertakers. Nathan, who had been leaning forward in my chair triumphant, recoiled as if he'd been struck. "Who the hell are you? This is a private board meeting. Security?" Melissa, who was sitting against the wall just behind her brother, looking smug, gasped and sat upright. "They are with me," I said. Ms. Diaz walked calmly to the head of the table. She didn't look at Nathan. She looked at Robert Vance, the CFO. "Mr. Vance," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "I am Ms. Diaz, legal counsel for the Caroline Miller Irrevocable Trust, which as of 3 weeks ago is the 51% majority shareholder of this company." Robert Vance looked from her to me to Nathan in utter confusion. The trust, Julian, what is this?" "This," Ms. Diaz said, "is a change in management." She finally turned her cold, dark eyes on my son, who was still sitting in my chair. "Mr. Nathan Miller," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it filled the room. "You have no authority to call this meeting. You have no authority to sit in that chair. And you have no authority to propose any motions." Nathan burst into a short, hysterical laugh. He was still playing his part. "No authority, lady, you are out of your mind. I am the CEO, and I am the largest individual stockholder in this room. I own 49%. I am running this meeting." He looked to the board. "This is exactly what I was talking about. This is the predatory lawyer. She's trying to take over." Ms. Diaz did not smile. She did not raise her voice. She simply placed her own slim briefcase on the mahogany table and opened it. "You are the CEO," she said, "and your 49% is irrelevant." She looked at me. "Mr. Julian Miller, as the sole and undisputed trustee of the controlling interest, has already executed his first action filed with me this morning at 8 a.m. before this emergency meeting of yours was ever called." She slid a single signed document across the table to Robert Vance. Robert picked it up. His face went pale. "What?" Nathan demanded. "What is it?" "Mr. Miller," Ms. Diaz said, her eyes locked on Nathan, "you are fired, effective immediately, for gross misconduct, dereliction of duty, embezzlement of corporate funds, and criminal fraud." The silence was a vacuum. Nathan just stared at her. You can't, the board." "The board," Ms. Diaz said, "is now controlled by the trust. The trust holds 51%. Mr. Julian, as the trust's representative, is the board, and he has fired you." You old bastard," Nathan shrieked, finally dropping the act, his eyes wild as he stared at me. You'll destroy it. I'll sue you. I'll sue you for this." "You're welcome to try," Ms. Diaz said, "but you'll have to get in line, which brings me to my next point." She nodded to the two men behind her. They stepped forward. "These gentlemen," she said, "are the forensic auditors. They are here at the request of the trust to conduct a full and immediate audit of your tenure as CEO." "No!" Nathan scrambled out of the chair, knocking it over. Get out of my office." "It's not your office, Mr. Miller," Ms. Diaz said, "and the auditors will be starting with the side projects you've been funding in Miami, and the wire transfers to your personal accounts, and the corporate credit card you've been letting your sister use for her brand." Melissa let out a small, strangled squeak from the back wall. "We have copies of the wire transfers, Mr. Miller, Ms. Diaz continued, her voice a relentless cold drumbeat. We have the bank statements. We have the invoices for the Ferrari. We have the forged loan applications. We have the recording of your conversation with Mrs. Miller. Robert Vance, the CFO, looked like he was going to be sick. Julian, fraud, forged loans. He's been bleeding you dry for years, Robert, I said, my voice quiet, to pay for his life and his sister's. You can't prove any of that, Nathan blustered, but he was backed against the window. He was trapped. We don't have to, Ms. Diaz said. The auditors will, and then the district attorney will. Nathan's mind was racing. I could see him calculating, trying to find a way out. Fine, he spat. Fine. You want the company take the bankrupt piece of trash. I'll sell my shares, my 49%. I'll take my money and I'll start over. I'll bury you. Ms. Diaz almost looked sad for him. Oh, Mr. Miller, she said. You still don't understand. Your 49%, it's worthless. What? You're right, the company is bankrupt, thanks to you. You've loaded it with so much fraudulent debt that your shares aren't worth the paper they're printed on. The trust will not be buying them from you. We won't give you a single dollar. So what? So, Ms. Diaz said, we will be letting your personal creditors, the ones you owe millions of dollars to, take them. That hard money lender you tried to get your dying mother to sign with, they'll be very happy to get their hands on your stock. It won't cover your debt, of course, not even close. You're still personally liable for all of it, for everything. He had nothing. He had lost his job. He was about to be indicted for fraud. And his one remaining asset, his 49%, was a worthless pile of ash. He had lost. Completely. He slid down the wall, his perfect suit jacket bunching up, and he just stared. It was Melissa who finally found her voice. She sprang from her chair, her face a mask of furious, tear-streaked disbelief. No, she screamed, not at Ms. Diaz, but at me. No, you can't. What about us, the house? The house is ours. We grew up there. You can't take our home. Ms. Diaz turned to her. Her voice was flat, final. The house is also the property of the trust Ms. Miller, as is every piece of furniture in it. Ms. Diaz checked her watch, a simple, practical watch. You and your brother have 30 days to remove your personal belongings. I'd advise you to start now. She paused and delivered the final, devastating blow. Security will be arriving at the property in 1 hour to change the locks. It happened faster than I could have imagined. When you are dealing with millions of dollars in corporate fraud, the system does not wait. The auditors, Ms. Diaz's team, were not just accountants, they were surgeons. They weren't looking for mistakes. They were following the precise, devastating map Caroline had drawn for them. Within 48 hours, they had frozen every account. The lawsuits came first, a flood of them. The hard money lender Nathan had tried to use against his mother filed a massive suit citing the previous forged loans he'd taken out. The suppliers, the ones who hadn't been paid in 6 months, filed another. Robert Vance and the remaining board members, realizing they had been lied to for over a year, filed their own lawsuit for breach of fiduciary duty and gross negligence. But those were just civil suits. Ms. Diaz had been clear this was a criminal matter. The auditors presented their findings, a tidy, damning package of wire transfers, forged signatures, and the audio recording of the attempted blackmail directly to the district attorney's office. White-collar crime in this state is not taken lightly. They didn't come for him at the house. They came for him at his golf club. Robert Vance called me. His voice was shaking, half in terror, half in awe. He said they arrested Nathan on the 9th hole, right as he was lining up a putt. They didn't let him change his shoes. They walked him in his ridiculous pink polo shirt and spiked shoes right across the manicured green past the clubhouse and put him in the back of a simple, unglamorous police car. The CEO, the master of the universe, taken down like a common criminal. The charges were exactly what Ms. Diaz had predicted: multiple counts of wire fraud, bank fraud, and embezzlement. There would be no easy bail. And then there was Melissa. She thought she was separate. She thought she was just the sister, the influencer. She didn't understand that when your entire lifestyle is funded by stolen money, you are not an innocent bystander. You are an accomplice. The condo in Miami, the leased luxury cars, the brand image built on corporate credit cards, it was all seized. The creditors in their own civil suits named her as a co-conspirator in the unjust enrichment. They took everything. Her phone, once her source of income, went silent. The brand deals were canceled overnight. The friends she'd flown to Miami disappeared. She was left with nothing. Nothing but the clothes she was wearing and a stack of legal bills she had no way to pay. Their entire glittering, arrogant world, the world they had betrayed their mother for, had evaporated in less than a week. The boardroom was silent after they left, Nathan shuffling like a broken man, Melissa weeping hysterically, her mascara staining her expensive silk blouse. I stood there for a long time looking out the window of the office I had built. A week later I was back at the house. The 30 days were up. The house was empty. Not just quiet. Empty. The movers from the trust had come and gone, taking the expensive furniture Nathan and his wife had bought, the gaudy art Melissa had insisted on. All I had packed were my own clothes, my books, and the photos of Caroline, the real ones from before. The rooms echoed. The granite countertops were bare. The walls were blank, showing the faded outlines of where pictures used to hang. This was not my home anymore. It was an asset. A property of the trust, soon to be sold, the proceeds to fund its charitable work. I should have felt a profound sense of loss. I should have been heartbroken, a homeless old man, just as Nathan had threatened. But I wasn't. I felt peace. A vast, quiet, profound peace. I finally understood what Caroline had done. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't just about protecting me or saving the company. This was her final, desperate, heartbreaking act of love. As a mother. She knew our children were lost. She knew their souls had been poisoned by the very thing we had given them: money, the entitlement, the ease. It was a disease, and she knew that as long as they had it, they would never, ever heal. They would just continue to rot from the inside out. So she took it away. She didn't just disinherit them. She surgically removed the poison. She took away the company, the house, the trust funds, the entire lifestyle. She took away the weapons they had been using to destroy themselves and each other. She had forced them for the first time in their lives to hit rock bottom, to face the world with nothing but the consequences of their own actions. She hadn't just done it to save me. She had done it perhaps to save them. It was a terrible, beautiful, and ruthless act of a mother who had no other choice. It was her last painful gift. I went to the cemetery the next day. The sun was out. It was a clear, crisp afternoon. This time I was not alone. Ms. Diaz stood with me a respectful distance away, her hands clasped in front of her. I placed a single fresh white rose on the polished granite. Caroline Miller, beloved wife. I stood there for a long time. She knew, didn't she? I said, half to myself, half to the woman beside me. She knew all of it, how it would play out, that they wouldn't come. Ms. Diaz stepped up beside me. She looked at the headstone, not at me. She knew, Ms. Diaz said, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. And she did all of this to set you free, Julian, so you could finally live. I nodded. I understood. I left the cemetery and I did not look back. I sold my Mercedes. I bought a small condo, not in Florida, in Oregon, right on the coast where the rocks meet the cold, gray water. The place Caroline and I had always talked about, but never found the time to go. I can hear the ocean from my window. I am not a CEO. I am not a grieving widower. I am not a failed father. I am just Julian, and I am, for the first time, starting my life. The story teaches us a harsh but vital lesson. Love and respect are not the same as blind trust. True strength isn't just about building an empire, but about having the courage to protect it even from those you love. It shows that arrogance and greed are their own executioners, and that the quietest, most underestimated person in the room, like Caroline, is often the wisest. It's a powerful reminder that it is never too late to reclaim your life, and that true peace is found not in wealth but in dignity and self-respect. What would you have done if you were in Julian's shoes? Let me know in the comments below.